The dry wind sweeps across the savanna. Tiny grains of dust swirl in the air. You blink away the grit. Your lungs demand oxygen. You take a slow, deliberate breath through your nose. The dust settles deep in your nasal cavity. A microscopic piece of pollen adheres to your mucous membrane. The warning bells in your nervous system begin to ring. For 99% of human history, this is not a minor annoyance. For about 300,000 years, this tiny tickle in your throat is a matter of life and death. You crouch incredibly low in the tall yellow grass. The midday sun beats down heavily on your bare shoulders. A massive herd of prehistoric antelope grazes just 50 feet ahead. You raise your heavy wooden spear. Your muscles are coiled like springs. What happens if you sneeze right now? The tickle starts deep inside your nasal cavity. It is a highly specialized biological alarm. It travels rapidly up your trigeminal nerve. Your brain stem receives this urgent electrical signal immediately. You cannot stop this biological chain reaction now. The explosive release of air is already preparing itself. It will travel out of your face at over 100 miles per hour. The sound will shatter the absolute silence of the ancient landscape. Every single animal within a mile will raise its head immediately. The hunt will be instantly and permanently over. Why did your body evolve a reflex that actively ruins your chance of survival? You might think a sneeze is just a simple, everyday reflex. You might view it as a completely harmless bodily function. It clears irritants from your airway very efficiently. It keeps your lungs free of dangerous foreign debris. But in the harsh prehistoric world, it is a biological betrayal. Your own nervous system turns violently against your stealth. It ignores your conscious desire to remain hidden. How did your ancestors handle this involuntary and noisy explosion? To truly understand this terrifying paradox, you must look closely at the respiratory biology of early humans. Your ancient ancestors evolved to run across massive distances. They evolved to chase their prey until the animals simply collapsed from sheer physical exhaustion. Dr. Dennis Bramble from the University of Utah studied this exact phenomenon of endurance running. He found that your body is a perfectly tuned machine for persistence hunting. Your nuchal ligament keeps your head perfectly steady while you sprint. Your millions of sweat glands keep you incredibly cool under the blazing sun. Your breathing synchronizes flawlessly with the rhythm of your running stride. But this deep, continuous, and heavy breathing always comes with a massive cost. You inhale vast and unprecedented amounts of dust, dirt, and microscopic debris. Are you truly prepared to deal with the inevitable consequences of this deep breathing? Your nasal passages act as a vital biological filter for your lungs. They trap these countless foreign particles in layers of sticky mucus. The trigeminal nerve constantly monitors this area for any sudden buildup. It sends an unignorable and absolute command directly to your lungs. You must expel the foreign invader immediately to protect your lower airway. You take a sharp, deep, and completely involuntary intake of breath. Your vocal cords close tightly together to trap the air. Your chest muscles contract violently against this closed valve. The pressure inside your fragile lungs builds exponentially. And then comes the sudden, explosive, and uncontrollable release. Can you even begin to imagine the absolute danger this posed during a tense stealth ambush? Let us recreate a very specific and highly dangerous moment in prehistoric time. You are standing in the muddy and treacherous landscape of what is now Boxgrove, England. It is 500,000 years ago in the Middle Pleistocene. You are actively hunting a massive prehistoric horse. You are holding a heavy hand axe carved entirely from a single piece of flint. The cold wind is blowing directly into your face. This positioning is highly intentional. You always approach from downwind so the highly sensitive animal cannot smell your human scent. But the strong wind carries the dry, coarse dust of the ancient plain directly toward you. It carries the microscopic pollen of countless prehistoric grasses into your airways. The abrasive dust enters your nose. Your biological alarm system is immediately triggered. What is your next move? The massive horse is only 50 feet away from your hiding spot. Its sensitive ears twitch rapidly at the sound of a snapping twig. You freeze completely and utterly in your tracks. Your muscles ache deeply from the sudden, rigid tension. Then the terrible and familiar tickle begins in your airway. You try desperately to swallow it down. You press your rough tongue hard against the roof of your mouth. You violently pinch your nose with your dirt-stained fingers. You hold your breath until your lungs burn like absolute fire. You are fighting millions of years of deeply ingrained evolutionary programming. Your primitive brainstem is screaming at you to expel the dangerous dust. If you sneeze right now, the horse will vanish forever. If you sneeze, your hungry family does not eat today. If you sneeze, the massive amount of energy spent tracking for the last 6 hours is entirely wasted. How do you possibly override your own brain? This intense internal battle was the daily, exhausting reality of your ancient survival. Hunting was absolutely never a noisy or chaotic affair. It required absolute, perfect, and unbroken silence at all times. The anthropologist Louis Liebenberg spent decades intensely studying the persistence hunting techniques of the San people in the Kalahari Desert. He observed exactly how expert hunters communicate over vast and empty distances. They absolutely do not shout to one another. They do not even dare to whisper. They use a highly complex and nearly invisible system of subtle hand signals. They move fluidly through the dry, dead brush without snapping a single branch. They deeply understand that prey animals have hearing far superior to your own. A grazing antelope can hear the quiet, soft rustle of animal hide clothing. It can certainly hear the violent explosion of a human sneeze. Will you risk making even the slightest sound? When you sneeze, you generate a sudden sound that can easily reach 90 decibels. That is exactly as loud as a modern heavy gas lawnmower. In a natural world entirely without engines or industrial hum, the baseline noise level is near zero. A 90 decibel explosion of sound is exactly like a modern emergency siren going off in a library. It absolutely does not just alert your immediate prey. It alerts every single highly dangerous apex predator in the entire surrounding vicinity. It tells the massive saber-toothed cats exactly where you are hiding in the grass. It tells the packs of giant dire wolves that you are currently distracted and highly vulnerable. Are you beginning to see why a simple head cold could easily be a total death sentence? You must realize that ancient humans faced a constant, never-ending barrage of respiratory irritants. They lived in extremely dusty and arid environments every single day. They sat closely around smoky, burning wood fires every single night. The thick, acrid smoke from the communal hearth filled their lungs constantly. It irritated their sensitive nasal passages absolutely beyond belief. Archaeological evidence from ancient sites like Blombos Cave in South Africa shows high levels of continuous soot inhalation in human remains. Your strong ancestors were constantly and tirelessly fighting the urge to cough and sneeze. Yet they absolutely had to maintain perfect, unbroken silence when leaving the camp to hunt. How did they possibly manage this impossible physical paradox? They developed immense, almost superhuman, and incredible physiological control over their bodies. They learned to consciously and deliberately suppress the natural autonomic reflex. They used various natural, soothing remedies to coat their scratchy throats. Anthropologists studying traditional modern hunter-gatherers continually note the intense physical discipline of these indigenous hunters. The researcher Polly Wiesner, who thoroughly researched the complex social dynamics of the San, observed this exact physical discipline. They learned from early vulnerable childhood to control their bodies completely and entirely. They learned to breathe very shallowly and quietly through their noses. They learned to carefully avoid disturbing the dry, powdery dust beneath their bare feet. They learned to read the shifting wind perfectly. They read it not just to hide their human scent but to actively keep the wind from blowing debris directly into their faces. Do you possess this incredible level of bodily control? But what if the massive sneeze was entirely and biologically unavoidable? What if you were actually terribly sick with a highly contagious virus? A rhinovirus or the common cold has plagued humanity for many tens of thousands of years. If you had a severe cold in the brutal Pleistocene, you simply did not hunt. You absolutely could not hunt under any circumstances whatsoever. You would immediately ruin the stealthy stalk for everyone else in the entire hunting group. You would be a massive, dangerous liability to the entire tribe. You would be forced to stay behind by the smoky, warm fire. This is exactly where deep human empathy became a vital, non-negotiable survival tool. Your tight-knit community brought fresh, cooked food directly to you. They supported you entirely while your immune system fought off the aggressive, microscopic virus. Your very survival depended entirely and absolutely on the social safety net of your small tribe. Can you survive completely without them? Let us deeply analyze the sheer physics of the sneeze itself to understand the immense danger. A sneeze forcefully expels up to 40,000 tiny droplets of fluid from your airway. These invisible droplets are propelled outward by massive internal pressure. They cover a massive distance in a fraction of a single second. The sudden muscular contraction involves your diaphragm, your chest, and your vocal cords. This is not a subtle or quiet bodily process. It is a full-body, highly violent, and explosive spasm. It shakes your core and forces your eyes to close completely. For exactly 1/2 of a second you are completely blind and totally incapacitated. In a world filled with massive, hungry predators, closing your eyes involuntarily is incredibly dangerous. The ancient world required your constant, unbroken, and intense vigilance. How can you remain vigilant when your body forces you to shut your eyes? You are deeply connected to a vast network of ancient, biological alarms. Your body is highly optimized to expel microscopic threats. But your brain must constantly override these powerful alarms to ensure your daily survival. You must constantly balance the immediate need for a clear airway against the massive risk of making a loud noise. This delicate, dangerous balance requires immense cognitive processing and physical restraint. Your ancestors practiced this intense restraint every single day of their entire lives. They literally trained their nervous systems to ignore minor, irritating stimuli. They developed a massive tolerance for discomfort and physical annoyance. They simply could not afford the supreme luxury of sneezing freely in the wild. Do you understand the immense privilege of sneezing without fear? The environment itself was actively conspiring to trigger your sensitive reflexes. The Pleistocene landscape was largely composed of vast, dry, and windy steppes. During the massive glaciations, powerful winds swept millions of tons of dry loess across the continents. This fine, powdery dust was absolutely everywhere. It coated the tough grass. It clung heavily to the animal hides you wore for warmth. It swirled violently in the air with every step you took. Your lungs were constantly under massive assault from this abrasive, mineral dust. The fact that early humans could silently stalk highly alert prey in such conditions is nothing short of miraculous. It speaks volumes about their incredible adaptability and supreme physical control. How would you fare in a continuous, endless dust storm? Consider the intricate anatomy of the ancient human respiratory tract. Your airway is a highly complex, beautifully evolved, and sensitive system. It is deeply lined with millions of microscopic, hair-like structures called cilia. These tiny cilia beat continuously to move sticky mucus out of your lungs. When dust settles on these delicate cilia, the immediate response is swift and brutal. The sneeze reflex bypasses your conscious thought almost entirely. It travels through ancient, primitive neural pathways that predate humanity itself. Even fish and reptiles possess basic forms of this vital expulsion reflex. But only humans had to consciously and forcefully suppress it to successfully hunt massive mammals. You are fighting millions of years of deep vertebrate evolution. Can you truly win a battle against your own deep biology? Let us return once more to the tense, silent tall grass. The overwhelming urge to sneeze is completely and totally overpowering. You rapidly try an entirely different, desperate tactic. You look down directly and intensely at the dark, moist soil. You violently rub the hard, bony bridge of your nose. You exhale incredibly slowly through your mouth to completely bypass the sensitive nasal trigger. The burning, terrible sensation slowly begins to fade away. The powerful, explosive reflex is finally, temporarily subdued. You regain your sharp, intense focus on the hunt. The massive prehistoric horse is still grazing quietly and happily in the distance. You raise your heavy, deadly hand axe once more. You step carefully forward in absolute, perfect, and terrifying silence. You have successfully conquered your own powerful biology for one more dangerous day. Are you truly ready for the exact same challenge tomorrow? This incredible ability to suppress physical reflexes fundamentally shaped human evolution. It required massive changes in the frontal cortex of the human brain. Your ancestors needed advanced, powerful inhibitory control to survive the harsh realities of persistence hunting. They had to consciously override powerful impulses for hunger, thirst, pain, and physical reflexes. This supreme cognitive control allowed them to plan, strategize, and execute highly complex ambushes. It allowed them to communicate silently and effectively using only complex hand gestures. The silent suppression of a simple sneeze is actually a profound demonstration of advanced human cognition. It perfectly separates you from the simple animals you are actively hunting. Do you appreciate the incredible power of your own frontal lobe? The sheer silence of the ancient world was deep, profound, and absolute. There was absolutely no hum of electricity. There was absolutely no distant roar of highway traffic. There was absolutely no constant chatter of modern, loud media. The only sounds were the quiet wind, the gentle rustle of dry leaves, and the occasional distant call of a wild animal. In this profoundly quiet auditory landscape, a sudden, sharp noise travels for miles. A 90-decibel sneeze is a massive, violent acoustic anomaly. It instantly shatters the delicate, quiet equilibrium of the ancient ecosystem. It violently broadcasts your exact location to every single living creature with ears. It destroys hours of careful, silent tracking in a mere fraction of a second. Why would you ever risk destroying the silence? The intense pressure to remain completely silent extended far beyond just the actual hunt. It was a vital, absolute requirement for simply existing in the highly dangerous wild. When moving the entire, vulnerable camp to a new, fresh location, the tribe had to travel quietly. They had to protect the weak, crying children and the slow, elderly members of the group. If someone was loudly coughing or violently sneezing, they drew dangerous attention to the entire vulnerable group. The sick individual became a highly dangerous acoustic beacon for large, hungry predators. This harsh reality forced early humans to develop highly sophisticated natural medicines. They actively sought out soothing, medicinal herbs and powerful barks to calm irritated, scratchy throats. They used sweet honey and warm animal fat to coat their raw respiratory passages. They actively treated the terrible symptoms not just for comfort, but for the absolute safety of the entire group. Do you rely on modern medicine to keep you safe? Your modern understanding of respiratory illness is incredibly detached from this ancient, harsh reality. When you catch a mild cold today, you simply take a tiny pill and continue with your day. You go to your safe office. You visit the loud grocery store. You sneeze freely and loudly into a soft tissue. You experience mild, temporary discomfort, but you never experience true, mortal danger. You have completely forgotten the terrifying, ancient connection between loud noise and sudden death. Your comfortable modern life completely insulates you from the brutal consequences of your own biology. You view a sudden sneeze as an annoying inconvenience. Your ancient ancestors viewed it as a massive, dangerous threat to their very survival. How quickly you forget the harsh lessons of your own evolutionary past. The intense physical demands of persistence hunting required absolutely perfect cardiovascular health. You had to run for many long, grueling hours under the scorching, brutal sun. Your lungs had to continuously process massive amounts of oxygen to feed your highly active muscles. Any slight restriction or terrible irritation in your airway was a massive, dangerous handicap. A simple, basic chest cold could severely reduce your vital aerobic capacity. It could easily make the critical difference between catching a meal and slowly starving to death. The early human immune system had to be incredibly robust and highly efficient. It had to clear dangerous respiratory infections quickly and completely. Those who suffered from chronic, lasting respiratory issues simply did not survive to pass on their weak genes. Your very existence is absolute proof of your ancestors' incredible biological resilience. Are you worthy of their immense physical struggles? The incredible social dynamics of the prehistoric tribe revolved heavily around mutual survival. The strong, healthy hunters provided highly nutritious meat for the entire, extended group. The skilled, knowledgeable gatherers provided essential, fibrous roots and sweet berries. When a key hunter was severely incapacitated by a respiratory illness, the entire tribe suffered immensely. They lost a vital, necessary source of highly prized calories and essential protein. This created a profound, deep evolutionary pressure for highly complex social cooperation. The tribe absolutely had to actively care for the sick individual until they completely recovered. They had to share their extremely limited food and precious water. They had to actively protect the loud, sneezing person from dangerous predators. This deep, profound empathy is not just a soft, moral concept. It is a hard, necessary, and vital biological survival strategy. Could you survive the harsh ice age without empathy? Let us deeply examine the absolute terror of the prehistoric night. The ancient sun sets slowly below the distant, flat horizon. The deep, heavy darkness completely swallows the vast landscape. The small tribe gathers closely around the warm, flickering fire. The thick, acrid smoke stings your tired eyes and irritates your raw throat. You hear the terrifying, deep roar of a massive cave lion in the dark distance. You hear the chilling, high-pitched laughs of giant hyenas circling the vulnerable camp. You feel a familiar, terrible tickle building deep in your airway. The cold, dry night air makes it immensely worse. You try desperately to suppress the sudden, violent urge to cough. You know that a loud, sudden noise will draw the hungry predators directly to the fire. You hold your breath until you feel dizzy and incredibly weak. You squeeze your tired eyes shut and intensely focus all your willpower on silence. Will your willpower be absolutely enough to keep you alive until dawn? The incredible contrast between this ancient, terrifying reality and your modern, comfortable life is truly staggering. This is the great and heavily hidden trap of modern, sanitized comfort. You live your entire life in a highly sanitized and incredibly safe world. You have highly expensive electric air purifiers. You have powerful chemical antihistamines in your medicine cabinet. You sneeze loudly and freely in your comfortable, warm living room and think absolutely nothing of it. You view it simply as a highly quirky and minor bodily function. You forget entirely that this exact same biological mechanism used to strictly dictate whether you lived or starved to death. Your human nervous system is still heavily and deeply wired for the dangers of the ancient savanna. It still violently reacts with massive, sudden force to a single, microscopic piece of harmless pollen. The dust settles in the tall grass. Your eyes water slightly. The air is dry and thick with pollen. You hold your breath.